It makes perfect sense why there's no vloggers in Arizona. It's way too hot out here. What's up everybody, Anthony Saratelli here of Jersey Filmmaker, and this mountain behind me is Camelback Mountain here in Scottsdale, Arizona. The sun is harsh. I've never done a drone hyperlapse before, but I wanted to give it a shot, so I thought this would be a great way to do it. This isn't even a good view of the mountain. There's a way better view on the other side, but I got kicked out of the park for droning. Let me start with saying you should check your local laws when you do drone in places you've never been to, which I did, and Echo Canyon Park was not on the list. Thankfully, the park ranger was really nice. He just made me bring it down and all was good. And I did get my hyperlapse just in time, literally just in time as my battery was dying and I was bringing the drone down. He popped by and said, "Sir, you gotta bring that down." So I brought it down. Vlogging quick tip. If you're gonna do something that you've never done before, like this drone hyperlapse, for example, for me, and you're not sure if you're gonna capture it correctly or even at all, because you might get kicked out of the park, go ahead and do that first before you go record your informational part of the vlog like I'm doing right now, because if you don't get it, you kind of wasted your time. So I'm glad I did that first, just barely snuck it in, so here we go. So in order to do this hyperlapse, I actually had to get up at like 5 o'clock this morning because I attempted to do this yesterday at around 1 p.m. and it was 111 degrees. One, that was just about unbearable for me to be out in the sun in, and two, the drone couldn't handle it. I put it up in the air for about 6 or 7 minutes and I was losing signal a lot, and it was telling me max payload, max velocity, max something. Something was maxing out pretty quickly when I tried to move. Well, speaking of maxing out, that's exactly what kept happening to my camera in that heat. I'm back on the East Coast now and I had to wrap up shooting in the desert because my A7S II kept overheating. Now I know Sony mirrorless cameras are known for their overheating, but I've shot up to 3-hour interviews on these things, of course stopping every 30 minutes for 2 seconds to restart the recording, but I've never had an issue. However, in that direct sunlight of 100+ degrees, I just couldn't get it to stay cool enough and it just kept shutting off on me, so I had to call it quits. Hashtag fail. Back to what I was saying though, at 111 degrees, I was getting a bad signal from the drone, so I quickly brought it down, and even after under 10 minutes of flight, the battery was so hot it was almost untouchable. I was way too nervous to throw it back up in the air, so I packed it up, got up early, and beat the heat. Man, that water is loud. Can you hear that? That's water below me. I parked in this parking lot right here, felt good about the only 90-degree weather, and got to work. So over here in the app, the first thing you'll have to do is select picture mode, then come up into the settings and take it off auto, move over to manual. My ISO is already as low as it can be, and I'm gonna use the shutter for exposure since I don't have NDs yet. Next, we'll go over to the photo settings and we'll go into image format and we'll select RAW so we have the most control in post. Then we'll go to image size and we'll go to 16:9 since we're gonna use this in a video style in the end anyways. Then we'll go to photo and go down to timed shot and select 5 seconds. I selected my white balance already on sunny since it's a nice sunny day, and I'm gonna put my style on none so that I can stylize everything in post. So now out here, we're gonna select this little controller for the auto flight settings, and we're gonna use tap fly. As you see, your options are forward, reverse, free, and coordinate. We're gonna use forward in this case. Reverse is pretty simple to use as well. Free and coordinate have their own types of settings, and that's for another video, so I'm just gonna skip that for now. Side note, something that's missing from the previous menu is the Waypoints option, which allows you to set an A and B point, which is great for hyperlapses and time lapses, but is not included on the Mavic Air. Next thing I'm gonna do is move the miles per hour down to 2.2, as slow as it can go, so that this gets a nice slow pace. Then I'll touch the screen and it'll say tap fly. Now I'm gonna hit the photo shutter button so that I could start the time lapse of 5-second photos. Then I'm gonna hit go on tap fly and let it go. You'll see it adjusts to where I selected, and it's gonna fly directly towards that at a very slow 2.2 mile an hour pace. But you'll see in a few seconds here that the problem is I selected above the horizon. And what's gonna happen is it's gonna hit its max altitude and not let me fly anymore, so we have a problem. In order to fix that, I'm gonna do the tap fly once again, and I'm gonna click right at the horizon or maybe even a little below so that it'll fly straight or even downward a little bit. Your other option is to lower the drone and let it ascend, but again, it will hit a max fly eventually, so I like to keep it at the horizon or below. And now if we speed this up, we have a nice hyperlapse.
Drone hyperlapse.
And now moving on to post, we're in Adobe Lightroom and we're going to add photos by clicking this little plus button and then finding our photo folder, select that folder and let them import. Actually, they'll come in for review first, then you click add photos to import all of your photos. That might take a little bit of time, but once it's all done, all your photos will be lined up along the bottom, assuming you're looking at it in this view. I'll go up to the top right to get my color and exposure tools out. And then I'm going to go make sure that I'm selected on the very first photo, which for some reason is all the way to the right and not left. But I'm on the very first photo and I'm going to start making color adjustments. Now I'm going to fly through this because this is completely up to you and your discretion and how much or little you want to actually stylize it. So I'm just going to run through this and do what I do. And then when we're done and happy, we can go up to Photo, Copy Edit Settings, select another photo and go to Paste Edit Settings. You'll see that photo gets the same color adjustments applied, and now we can go ahead and do this for all of our photos. But beforehand, I do like to go all the way to the end. In this case, it looks like the beginning. But anyways, the very last photo and do the same thing, paste edit settings, just to see if light or anything has changed. But I like the way this looks. I'm happy. So now I'm going to go over to this other tab so I could see all of my photos, and I'm going to select all of them by clicking either Command A, or right now I'm just selecting the ones that haven't been done yet, and I click paste edit settings. All photos will be affected, of course. Click OK and let that work, and you'll see that they all get changed to your awesome new cinematic look. Next thing to do is go to File, Send To, and we're going to export all of these photos as JPEGs. Go ahead and select this little folder in the corner. Find the folder that you want. I'm actually going to create a new folder here, and let's make that, hyperlapse 2 JPEGs per se, 2 JPEG. Make sure your size is on full size since we want the highest quality. It's on JPEG. Hit save, and that's going to take some time. But once that's done, we'll head over to Adobe Premiere Pro. In Premiere, we'll go to Import. We'll find that picture sequence that we just saved. We'll go to Image Sequence, and we'll click Import. Next thing, hit Command N. We're going to make a new sequence. We'll call it Drone Hyperlapse. Select OK. I already have my presets set. I'm going to drag this in. Of course, we want to leave these settings. We can drop down the scale so that we can see this in full, which is about 50%. I'm going to render in to out just so we can watch this back nicely, and we have a nice hyperlapse. Check this out, looking pretty good, straight out the box per se. I'm very happy with the way this is started. So the next thing we'll do is we'll go to Warp Stabilizer in our effects panel, which of course we can't just drop on here because it's not the same dimensions. So we'll have to nest this, right click, go to nest, name it Drone Hyperlapse Nest, let's say. Now we can drop Warp Stabilizer right on top and let it do its work. Once it's done, it'll stabilize, and then we could check it out. And then again, let's render it one more time so we can check it out nice and smoothly. Once that's done, it'll play back our stabilized hyperlapse. And again, not looking pretty good. And I got to say, not much different. Actually, if anything, look at the top left. The clouds are a little jumpy. What's going on there? So we got a little jumpiness in the clouds, so I'm not super happy with the stabilization. What we could do is play with some of the numbers up here. We can change the method to position, scale, and rotation instead of subspace warp. Still getting that jitteriness in the clouds. We could change the smoothness to see if that'll do anything. Still looks pretty jittery in the clouds. I'm not super pumped with that. So you know what? Let's try rendering it just to see if that's the problem. Nope, we're still getting jitteriness in the clouds. So we're going to try something else to try to stabilize this. Let's just look at this big real quick. Yeah, we're getting way too much jumpy clouds up in this corner. So let's go over to After Effects, and we're going to import our image sequence in here. So we go to our footage, we go to our sequence. I'm going to create a new composition by clicking this little box right here and import. So what we're going to do in here is we're going to go over to Tracker, and we're going to go to Stabilize Motion. You want to drag open this bigger box here, and that's going to be the area that it's going to search, and then the smaller box is going to be the area that is actually looking for. So I'm going to go to the top side of this, and I'm going to scan all the way through to an area I think will be in the shot the whole time. So I'm going to pick this little cave looking area right here, and you'll see the small square is covering that whole cave area, and this bigger square is covering the area I think it might roam to. So let's let this do its work. It did get a little off during the tracking, so I had to make some adjustments, but now we're all good, and we hit apply to the X and Y axis, and now we have a very stabilized shot. Now you'll see that it didn't reposition everything for us automatically. We're gonna have to do that ourselves, but look at how smooth this looks, and look at the clouds. That was our big problem. The clouds are now looking super silky smooth, so kudos to the After Effects Stabilized Motion Tracker. So first things first, we're gonna go into the composition and change this from a 4K composition to a 1080 composition. Since I made a composition from the actual photos, we got to drop this back down, and I want to put it at 24 frames a second as well so that it matches my project frame rate. So we'll have to go to scale and position here. I'm going to hit S and P, and I'm going to bring the scale down all the way so that it just fits in screen. I'm going to go to the end here, and I'm actually going to keyframe the end to start. So let me keyframe the scale and position, and I'm going to move this into position because I'd rather be wider here just so I could see what the clouds are doing in the background as opposed to pushing into the mountain. So I'm going to leave this wider, and then I'll push in a little bit on the widest part of the shot. You could do it either way, but that's just the way I preferred. So I go back to the beginning and I reposition this side as well, and then I'm going to scroll through and see if I stay in frame the whole time, which you can easily see I do not on the bottom and on the left. So we're going to have to make some adjustments here. So I'm just going to scale it up in the first frame of our keyframe, and let's see if that does the trick. It still does on the bottom in the very last third of the shot. It comes a little bit up off the bottom part of the frame. So I'm going to move down the beginning keyframe and see if it still does it in the end. Now we're looking a little off to the left. So let's see here. If we go to the end, if we go to the end here, we have a little bit of room to play with, so I'm going to move this to the left and down a little bit to see if that works. And it looks pretty good. I can't tell if that's coming off or not on the left side. But you know what? Just to be safe, we can play with this. You know what? We'll scale this. I mean, not scale this. We'll move this over. This is a little much, but just to be safe. Now I think we're good on the whole way around. I might even move. Nope. Looking pretty good. I think that's it. So let's render this out, and now it looks like we are in screen, full hyperlapse completed. I'm really liking the way this looks. So the last thing we were going to want to do is render this out. So we'll go and hit Command Alt M, and that'll send this over to our render queue. And then we could go over and select QuickTime here, which is already selected. Then we can go ahead and select our output path, and we'll type in drone hyperlapse stabilized. We'll render this guy out real quick, and then we'll go back over to Premiere. We'll go into our renders, import it, and then we can bring it into the timeline. And here it is in Premiere, looking real nice. And then we could always do some final color adjustments, which I'm gonna do, and just go crazy with the stylization and make it cool and looking good to whatever I like. And here it is now finalized. I wanted to just get all crazy with it. So the only thing left to do is obviously render a copy, and then we have our nice Camelback Mountain drone hyperlapse.
Drone hyperlapse.
So there you have it, a drone hyperlapse to add to your arsenal. Really quite simple, but again, a bummer that the drone won't last longer in the air. Of course, this isn't the only way to do a hyperlapse with the drone. You can use the Waypoints option like I mentioned if your drone has it, or you can use point of interest, which will circle around a subject or a certain point, which I think would be really cool to do a half circle style hyperlapse. I'm gonna try that soon. You can get as creative as you want with the auto modes. You could even fly it manually to cover a lot of ground to get a crazy fast hyperlapse. This would make it harder to stabilize, of course, in post, but still could look pretty cool. The way I did it was just the general concept, so get out there, try it out, play with it, and figure out what works best for the shot you're trying to capture. And that's all I got for you for this episode. If you liked it, help me out and click that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and click that little bell so you can get alerts to all future episodes. If you have any comments or questions, you know you can leave that below, or contact me on any of my social medias, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, @Jersey Filmmaker. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to get out there, don't wait, go create, and I'll see you next time.